How did you think the King performed? I mean, my understanding with the King, he was in a carriage with Camilla. My understanding is that he did want to ride a horse. He wanted to ride Noble, which is a...
I think he dodged a bullet there.
He dodged a bullet. And Noble was a little bit of a rascal by all accounts. But he was actually quite angry, I'm understood, that he was unable, that the doctor said to him, you can't ride a horse. He wanted to be on the horse. Yeah. So William was there. Edward was there and looking resplendent, you know, even though the rain came down, they looked absolutely incredible on their horses. But how do you think the King coped? Because it's his day. It wasn't the Princess of Wales's day. Exactly. It was the King's day.
Look, we know, I think, enough about the King's approach to his working life to understand that he'll have been really frustrated by being told he can't do something. And you only have to look at the way he's been operating in the last few weeks. He's had a very, very busy schedule, even though they are making adjustments to take into account his cancer treatment. But he did remarkably well. You know, he was on the days for a very long time, and then back at the palace, taking that royal salute for a very long time in absolutely biblical weather. There was a sense towards the end of the balcony moment where it looked a little bit like the Queen was hurrying him back inside as if to say, come on now. It's time to go and have a rest. So it'd be interesting to see. But then he was out again the next day at the polo in the Garter Queen's Cup. So this isn't someone who's going to just be sitting on the sofa and putting their feet up.
It's interesting you say about the Queen trying to usher him back in. I'll go back over the footage. That's really interesting because we know the Queen has said he's hard to control. Yes. He has to slow down, but it's good that she is. I think he probably does listen to her. I do wonder who was it that delivered the news to the King and said, you cannot ride a horse, and I just wonder what reaction he got.
Well, it was interesting to see that even Princess Anne had a little bit of a struggle. Yeah. You know, former Olympic horsewoman, Noble, obviously very excited to be on parade. I wonder if we'll see him being as active next year.
Definitely. Who else was there? We had Prince Louis, of course. How can we forget Prince Louis? If anyone almost stole the show from the King's birthday and the Princess of Wales's reappearance in the spotlight, it was Prince Louis. We're becoming accustomed to this now, aren't we?
We are, and you know, we almost expect it from him now. So we certainly were watching with bated breath to see what he'd do next. What I loved about this year was the interaction between him and Charlotte. And I got the sense that certainly on the palace balcony, maybe they'd had a word with Louis and talked about trying to rein it in somewhat, because he did look like he was concentrating quite hard. But at the Major General's office, he pulled out dance moves to Highland Laddie. There was a bit of shimmying going on, but just like any other 6-year-old. It's great to see that, and I think it's so relatable for parents up and down the country, you know, that he's just like any other kid his age.
Well, that's the beauty of it in many ways. I do wonder when these young princes and princesses suddenly get told who they are, you know, in this kind of hierarchical system that we have. At the moment, he's just being a normal boy. He's not there for our entertainment.
No.
He's just being allowed to be a child and then one day become a prince. It's really nice to watch. So.
Well, and it really sort of speaks to the way William and Kate are approaching the upbringing of the children, doesn't it? You know, they want it to be as normal as possible. Yes, they have incredible privileges, but they're, you know, Kate in particular comes from a relatively normal background, and I think that she's able to share that perspective with the children in a way that perhaps royals from previous generations didn't have access to.
Fair enough. Just quick diversion onto other royals, Duke and Duchess of Sussex, or the Duchess of Sussex in particular. There was a bit of a furore on Saturday morning because she had announced, or a friend had revealed that she had made some more jam and some dog biscuits, and it was released on the day that the Princess of Wales was made, you know, coming back into the spotlight. Do we care that she's done this? Is it people seem to get upset about it?
Yeah, look, I think, you know, the problem is that anything they do is either going to be praised or criticised to an extreme, because unfortunately that seems to be the way that people approach stories about them. You know, the jam business is not new. Yeah, eyebrows were raised about the timing of that. And it was actually done through their very close friend, Nacho Figueres, who posted it on Instagram. The dog biscuits was new. That was a new line. Yeah. Waiting to hear more about that in the future and whether that's going to come out of her new business venture. But yeah, it's interesting the way it's sort of being kind of drip-fed out. Is that going to mean that all eyes are on it when it officially launches? Or is it just going to be a slow burner?
Well, I don't think releasing dog biscuits on the day of the Princess of Wales's, appearing at Drooping the Colour is going to steal any front pages,
I don't think it
No.
ruffled any feathers.
It certainly didn't. Talking of feathers, plumes. Plumes in hats this week.
know.
We were both at Garter Day.
It was windy.
Yeah, it was windy. Now, to the untrained eye, Garter Day looks a little bit medieval. So even to the trained eye, two people who sat there and watched it all happen in Foldis, it also looked a little bit medieval.
Because it is, Matt.
It is.
Yeah.
But looking into it, it's the highest order of chivalry. And so the King and the Queen and Prince William and the Duke of Edinburgh and Princess Anne were the main roles that were leading down. But did you enjoy the day there? Did you get the sense of why people were there? Because there was a lot of people. They queued for hours to see it.
It's a real spectacle, and it is quirky, and it is might appear a bit eccentric from the outside, but I think it's kind of what the monarchy does best in this country. It brings that sort of pomp and pageantry, and it is unique. There can't be any other. Well, there are a few other countries where you'd be continuing a tradition like that that's 700 years old. Honouring people. And I think it's interesting as well that they are appointing people who aren't necessarily, hereditary peers or aristocrats now. We've got a few former prime ministers. You had Lord Lloyd Webber yesterday being honoured as a Knight of the Garter or a Companion of the Order. And it's an unusual one for sure, but you can see why. If you're coming to the UK and if you want to go to Windsor and see something quintessentially British and quintessentially royal, then you can't really do much better.
No, I completely agree. And it's always sunny on Garter Day.
Yes.
And you can get in. As I say, there was huge queues. And all across the lawns, we saw there's so many people camped up with camping chairs just to watch.
Picnics and
you don't see much.
No, you don't. It's the carriage ride past on the way back, which is really lovely. But actually, it's also the band music, the guardsmen. We saw one poor guy as well who succumbed to the heat yesterday because it's a bit of a sun trap there.
And they're there for a long time as well.
And I'm always a little bit worried about the knights and ladies who tend to be of advancing years, wearing a lot of velvet and a lot of feathers.
A lot of plumes and feathers.
A lot of plumes for June.
One royal who didn't wear his velvet robes, his mantle, or his plumed hat was
at least not in public.
At least not in public. Yes, this is Prince Andrew we're talking about. This is the highest chivalric order. Prince Andrew has not appeared in public. He doesn't take part in this public walk down to the chapel. He doesn't take part in the ceremony, but he takes part in the lunch and the investitures before. Should there be a stage where it's a high chivalric order that maybe the King should look at Prince Andrew's membership?
That's a good question. I don't know what, if any, system there would be to remove him from it. But look, I think what we've seen from the King, particularly at Christmas and a couple of other events in recent years, is that he has kept the Duke of York as very much as part of the family. He's there for the family events, and I think if he's taking part in things behind closed doors, it doesn't particularly bother me. I don't know